wiggle my fingers and then hope that I can get this audio correct. Hi, if you're new here, I am Soul, otherwise known as Milk and Sugar. I am a digital art hobbyist who runs the Mint Tea Shop, which is my merchandise shop. Art is my passion. It's not my occupation. I actually work in the tech field, but that's another story. And yeah, depending on who you ask, the title really isn't clickbait. I participated in probably one of the worst coordinated virtual artist alleys, to the point where it felt like the convention had only done it just to get money from us. So, a little background. This year was my first year doing local events and conventions, so it's my first year vending as a whole, and I ended up applying to 2 conventions, both of them that I got waitlisted for. The first one was a local convention I didn't end up getting into, and then there was the second one, which I won't actually say the name solely because I am only just sending my email to the Artist Alley staff. I want to give them enough time to be able to review my criticisms and also be made aware that other people have contacted them before I decide whether or not it's necessary for me to actually tell everybody the convention name publicly. However, I do not have any issues with telling people privately which convention this was. So, the background. As mentioned previously, I had originally applied to be an artist for the in-person Artist Alley at the convention, but I was initially waitlisted, which in and of itself is an honor. I am very grateful that even in my first year I was able to make the waitlist of such a big event. And honestly, by the time we got a month out and I saw that there were no in-person table spaces, I already knew that it was a long shot even applying, so I wasn't too worried about it. However, when we got to late July, they actually sent out an invitation to a virtual artist alley that they were preparing. And on paper, it sounded good. They were flexing how they had 3.5 million views on their website and how they had over 100,000 people on their application. And so I was compelled by the numbers to actually apply. I thought it would be a good idea since it would mean that I wouldn't have to spend money to actually get a hotel or to fly out, and it would save me a lot of money while also being able to vend at the event. And even the price point for the tabling space didn't feel ridiculous at the time. It was $200 per space, and that was just to be on the website. They would give you advertising and they would show us off to these 3 million people that visit their website yearly. That was about half of what the in-person tabling space cost, minus the hotel and the plane. So it felt like a great trade-off. However, as we soon would find out in August, that was not really the case, but we'll get there. It's just July right now. So I pay for my space, I accept the invitation, and then I get to work. I start making merchandise, I start ordering extra merchandise of some stuff that I already had. So I restock on my Vocaloid charms, I restock my TGCF charms, I restock some of my Monster Hunter charms, and then I also made new merch, and that was for the Husky and his White Cat season. I made Moran and Chuaning charms, and in the last days leading up to the August 11 launch, I started making a Shopify just to make sure that I was getting the most out of being at this event. So I spent several hours making a website specifically for this, and I didn't know how to use Shopify. It was a horrible experience making a Shopify for the first time. It's so much better now that I know how to use it, but it was a headache to do. However, despite the headache, I'm actually very grateful to have made that Shopify page because it ended up being a way for me to track how many people were coming from the Artist Alley page to my shop. And comparing numbers with the other artists, it turned out that all of us, we were getting around the same, if not less, traction from the convention website to our own individual shops. So August 11th rolls around, and it's a little bit concerning because they hadn't advertised the event at all prior to the starting date. And even on the starting date, it took them until midday until they finally advertised it for the first time to the community. And they just let everybody know on social media that the artist alley was happening. They said, here's the link to be able to view the artist in the virtual artist alley, and this is a month-long event. And after they pushed out this first advertisement, I was feeling confident. I felt that it was still a great opportunity for all of the artists involved to be able to participate in the virtual artist alley and be a part of the event. But I would soon find out that that first advertisement would, for a very long time, be the only advertisement for the event. And when I say the only advertisement, I mean the only advertisement, because they wouldn't repost any of the initial advertisements either, nor did they send out a newsletter or a email or even put us on the front page of the website. They actually put us in the exhibitors tab. And if you know anything about the types of people that go to the exhibitors tab, you know that the only people that would really go to the exhibitors tab are exhibitors and artists. So now we are in a predicament where our target audience, or the people who are just navigating the website to look for passes or see events, they're not able to find us because we're hidden in a place where it's primarily used by artists and exhibitors. So basically, in other words, we were hidden on the website while also receiving minimal to no advertising by the convention. And you know what they say, hindsight is 2020. I probably shouldn't have been as optimistic as I was at the time, but I was still holding out hope that they would send out some form of advertising, maybe through a newsletter or a YouTube video or some type of advertising giving the artist some spotlight or just letting people know that the virtual artist alley existed. But they just didn't. And maybe this is too kind of me, but I still give them a little bit of leeway since this was their first year. I understand that the Artist Alley team is not perfect. Every new event can't be executed perfectly, and that's fine. However, I find it extremely hard to believe that the team running the Artist Alley of one of the biggest conventions on my side of the country found that advertising the event on social media only twice over a month-long period was going to be adequate enough for the event to be a success. But we live and we learn. What's done is done. I just hope that next year that they take notes that that is not enough. However, I'm not really sure if they're actually taking notes because they've kind of been ignoring us, but I'm gonna get to that. So, at the time I was thinking maybe the horrible traction that I was having at this virtual artist alley was entirely my fault. I didn't come into this virtual artist alley delusional. I knew that there are certain types of people that like the media that I draw for, and sometimes when you vend at an event, their audience is not necessarily going to be your audience. However, it was around the end of the in-person convention that I was added to a group chat with all of the other artists from the virtual artist alley. And come to find out, after we all convene and talk about our experiences, I was not the only person who was having horrible traction. It was literally everybody that participated. Everybody that had the ability to see their analytics were mentioning how their traffic from the virtual artist alley was around 100 to 80 people. Editing Soul, so it turns out that it was actually 3 to 50. And this was very close to going into September, so almost a month into the event. If the Hope had been in the room with us, it probably left after we convened with each other and talked about our experiences. With the main convention ending shortly before we were added to the group chat and there still being a lack of advertising for the virtual artist alley, we were feeling like perhaps our bare minimum expectations for the event was still considered high. Nonetheless, there were still talks about emailing the Artist Alley team to say, hey, could we get a little bit more advertising? And perhaps that is what happened, because shortly after we mentioned that in the group chat, it was advertised again. However, it was a repost of the original Artist Alley post. It wasn't brand new advertising or artist spotlight or something new to clarify what the event was. It was just a repost of the post that they made on August 11th, which was a little slideshow scrolling through pictures of who we were. And not everybody was actually on the video where it was scrolling through the list of people, including me. I wasn't on there. And I'm not being biased, that's an observation. I'm just saying that not everybody was on the advertisement. But this new lack of effort on top of the lack of advertising that they did previously and the hiding us into the exhibitors tab and the lack of newsletters as compared to the space pricing started to make us feel like this whole event was a sort of cash grab. And as much as I want to say that my opinion has changed about the event, unfortunately, I still feel like it was a cash grab. Yes, because of the previous points I mentioned before, the lack of effort in advertising and putting us in a place where people wouldn't actually look for us, but also the lack of communication with us afterwards. Yes, we're finally getting there. The lack of communication in our emails after the event. So, after the advertisement in late August, that was the last mention of the virtual artist alley from the convention as a whole. So, there was the August 11th advertisement, and then I believe the second advertisement was put out August 28th, and then the event ended September 15th, if I remember correctly. I will fact check that. So needless to say, we had a lot of feedback for the Artist Alley team. I know of a handful of artists who sent out emails in September mentioning the lack of marketing, the lack of clarity with the community on the event, and the general outcome of the event, which was that all of the artists who participated found themselves at or near a 100% financial loss. Those emails were sent in September. I checked in with the group chat in October because I was curious to know if the Artist Alley team had replied to any of the emails, and no, they didn't. And once again, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps the artists that emailed them weren't persistent enough and didn't send enough follow-up emails, so it got lost in their inbox. Fine, that's valid. I can't say that everybody's going to see every single email that comes to their inbox. However, that is why I've sent my own email, because I am extremely annoying with emails. So I kind of want to leave the situation with little ambiguity about what's going on. I personally don't want to believe that they're ignoring our emails, because that would be extremely concerning and disappointing, considering the profit for the event was over $10,000. However, if it does get to a point where I'm sending 2 or 3 follow-up emails and they're still not getting back to me, I do have to believe that they are just ignoring us at that point. However, they are on holiday, so I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. If they don't get back to me after the holiday, then I will definitely send a follow-up email. And hopefully they'll get to me after the follow-up email. And if they don't get to me after the follow-up email, then I will send another follow-up email. I'm hoping it doesn't get to that point, but if it does and I still don't hear back, then at that point I'm forced to believe that they are just ignoring me. And if they're ignoring us and taking our money without actually taking feedback, then I will have to say what event this was. Because the last thing I would want is for an artist to sign up for the Virtual Artist Alley next year and experience the same type of loss as me and the other artists did this year. For now, my advice is to be cautious about virtual artist alleys and artist alleys in general, even local markets. Make sure you're doing your research and seeing how they coordinate and advertise their market or artist alley. Make sure they're actually doing the work to market it, and make sure the marketing is coherent, and make sure the organizers are receptive to feedback. And to my fellow artists who participated in the Virtual Artist Alley this year and it is their full-time occupation, or you weren't able to financially recover from the financial loss of the Virtual Artist Alley, I am deeply sorry. I don't think anybody expected the Artist Alley to go as horribly as it did, especially with the Artist Alley team not responding to our emails. So I am just, once again, deeply sorry that you had to experience something like that, especially not being able to get through to the team in order to make the next year a better year for everybody involved. I'm going to do my best to find everybody who participated in the virtual artist alley and then put their shops in the description below so people can check them out, because if anybody's going to give them the marketing they deserve, it's going to be me. Even though I am such a small artist, I want to do the best that I can, if this does get some type of exposure, to be able to share it with everybody that I was able to share the artist alley with. And if you made it this far into the video, I myself have an Etsy and a Ko-Fi, so if you like physical merch, you can rather go to my Ko-Fi or my Etsy, or if you still want to help and you don't want any of my physical merch, then you can donate to my Ko-Fi, or if you have any OCs that you would like drawn or a character that you like, I do have a VGen, and one of my commissions right now is a physical vinyl sticker commission. So if you're interested in that, you can check out my VGen as well. I hope my storytelling of this whole debacle was somewhat coherent and entertaining for you to listen to. If not, I hope that watching me draw was still nice enough for you to stay and listen. So if you're here still, thank you for watching, and also thank you for listening if you're drawing with me as well. And I don't know when I'll see you next time, so please take care of yourself, make sure you're hydrating and eating, and I will see you whenever I see you.